Hi, and welcome to The Hive. This is Quilting with Queen Bee. I'm your host, Brenda, and today we're going to be making a Mahjong style quilt. Recently, I came across this beautiful fabric called Hello Alice, and it's by Sarah Watts of the Ruby Star Society, and they partnered with Moda to create this fabric. And I grabbed the panel. Here's the panel with all of the iconic Alice in Wonderland scenes, and I've already kind of cut it up. So, um, but basically, the idea that I had for this panel was to make it into sort of a mahjong style. And along with that, I've got some other fabrics that we're going to be working with. I got this jelly roll strip, 2.5-inch strips of the same fabric to go along with it and accent it. And then I got a yard of this cute Cheshire cat fabric that goes with it. We also have the little caterpillar that hangs out on the toadstools. And we've got Alice falling through the air. And then for the back of the quilt, I thought I would use this to kind of set it off and be a nice contrast. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I have pre-cut the panel that we are going to be using for this mahjong tile type of quilt that I have in mind. What I have decided to use are these ones that look like they're card. So we have the Mad Hatter, of course, is the Joker, so forth and so on. I have 5 of these, and I'm going to take the rest and set them aside for a different project. So we'll put those aside. And what my feeling is on these is I want to have the center one with more of the pink framing the first frame for it, and then the second will be in the blue colors of these 2.5-inch strips, the roll that we have. Now I've already opened the roll for this, and I sorted out through here to find the blues and dark colors that are going to work for the remaining 4 tiles, if you will. And then what I decided is, since these are going to be contrasting, and what I'm going for is the illusion of different depths of, rather than just a 2D, I'm looking for that 3D effect. So I'm going to use these 2 that were already in the jelly roll, and then I'm going to cut out more 2.5-inch strips out of this yard of fabric here. And those will make those squares, and we'll show that in a moment. I want to bring your attention to this pile, and as I showed you before, the pink caterpillar with the toadstool, these are going to be the accent squares, and so they're going to be framing the card squares. And since this is more of a dark, I thought it was a great opportunity to take the lighter squares, or the lighter 2.5-inch strips, and do the inside frame with that, and then follow up with the dark pink for the outside, and I think that will look really, really nice. Anyways, let's go ahead and set these aside for now. All right, so here we've got the Mad Hatter. We're gonna work with that. And my goal is for this to end up being 8 inches wide by 11.5 long or tall. So we'll go ahead and get this lined up. And currently this is a little over 8 inches. So we've got some room. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can cut both sides of this. Now I'll say I am traditionally a left-handed person. I have always been able to kind of do things both ways, because when you grow up as a left-handed person in a right-handed person world, you learn how to do things both ways. So you might see me go back and forth between left and right hand when cutting. I would ask you to do what is most comfortable for you, and always safety, because this blade is sharp and it has cut me a couple of times, and that's not fun. All right, so now we're going to see how close to 11.5 we are. We are actually there, so we don't really need to trim that. So now we've got our joker trimmed up, and let's flip this over and pick a couple of so for each round of framing, we're going to need to use two 2.5 inch strips. Won't use all of it, but it'll come really, really close. So we want to be mindful of that. So got those, and I'll go ahead and pull these ready-made Alice in Wonderland white strips. All right, since we know that this is 11.5 and this is 11.5, those are the two I'm going to start out with first. So I'm going to set these two aside, set this one aside for the moment. And I've already pressed this, it is in half. And I want to be looking at making sure that it's even, not slanted at all, so that we don't get a left hook in our sides. So first thing I'm going to do is cut off the selvage end. And then I am going to measure 11.5. And the nice thing about this ruler, it's a 2.5 inch ruler with length of 12.5, is it's perfect for these type of strips. All right, so we've got 2 of those. And I like to get those on first and then measure the top and the bottom so that I can get as close as possible without having to cut anything off. All right, let's go to the sewing machine. All right, here we go. So, nice thing about these playing cards fabric is they're right side up either way you put them, so it doesn't really matter which side you start with. So it'll look cool. It'll be a cool looking quilt from either direction. Be pretty awesome, I think. So we want to do a 1/4 inch. And so we'll just get that started. And I'm not pulling on either of the fabrics. I'm just holding them at the bottom so that they're not just loose and going wherever I want. And I'm trying to keep them lined up on this 1/4 inch line and just let the machine feed it through. And then I'll flip it around and do the same on the other side. Just get that corner lined up. And these edges on the 2.5 inch strips, they are pinked, but it's not impacting this project. Most of the time you'll probably want to measure to see if the 2.5 is on the inside of the pink or on the peak, because it can impact the size of your block. And for some projects, that's going to matter. For this one, it's not going to matter, so we are good to go. I can't wait to see what this looks like. It's just something I thought of. I thought was fun. And I just thought I'd give it a try. And we'll learn together. All right, so both of those are sewn. Now we'll go back over to the cutting board and we'll get these ironed and we'll get to the next part of the frame. Okay, so we're going to want to just gently press the seam, kind of loosen it up so that we can have an easier time making this seam flat. And we'll do the same to the other side here. And I'm making it so that the back side is going towards the dark fabric so that we don't have shadowing happening on the light fabric. So I don't know if the camera's picking this up, but if you ever stick something dark behind light fabric like this, you can usually see it. So just make sure that's like that. And then the next step we're going to take is we're going to measure, and The width here is 12 across. So we are going to we're going to take this guy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be enough for the top. I'm going to iron the fold out. That could cause my measurement to be inaccurate. So just press that out. And on this, you can choose to stack them up and cut them, or you can just cut one at a time. It is purely a comfort choice. There's no hard and fast rules. Just for ease, I'm going to just do one at a time, and that's fine with me. And then pull this, and I'll want to get the selvage cut off, and then just do 12. So get that nice and even there. And then line that up on that cut. Cut that, and this can be used for a different project. All right, let's take these to the sewing machine and get them attached. All right, let's get this up, and we're going to put this up here, lining up again. No stretching, just lining it up. And I am going to be honest, I am horrible at pinning. I have lots of pins, but I rarely use them. If I have a lot of seams to match up, I'll use pins. But that said, if you feel more comfortable pinning this, I would say go for it. Just make sure when you do pin it up that as you're coming up to that pin, you take it out so that the needle doesn't hit the pin and then do something that will cause you to be shocked. Either break your needle or anyways, so let's go get this up there. All right, now we're going to take this back over to the cutting board. We'll get it ironed open, then we'll measure for the outside edge. Here we go. Just a couple more sides, and this one block is going to be done. All right, so again, we're just gonna line up the bottom edge. We've got it tacked down on the top there. And all I'm really doing is just trying to secure the fabric so it's not going wherever it wants to go. It's going where I want it to go. And I'm not stretching it, I'm just gently holding it and I'm guiding it with my other hand so that it goes in a straight line and doesn't wander off the path. And I go a little bit fast. I've been accused of putting the pedal to the metal here and there, but you go as fast or slow as you want to. There's no deadlines with quilting. It is something that you get your project done when you get your project done, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be pleasing to you. I think that's one of the things that really draws me in on quilting is a quilt will always fit. To me, it's easier than sewing clothes. Of course, I really haven't given that too much of a try, but I have never heard anybody say they didn't like a quilt that they were gifted. So, do this side. Hold that bottom end down. And then let it rip. There we go. Now we'll go and get this ironed and get the top pieces, and this one will be in the books. All right. We've got just one more set to add after this, and this block is going to be done. I would love to hear from you all. What do you think of this combination? I am personally rather loving it. I can't wait to see how the pink plays in with all of this. We're already getting a little bit of a preview. All right. Get this moved out of the way. And then we'll take a solid look at what the length across the top and the bottom are. All right. So we are looking at 16. So I don't think we're going to have a problem. In fact, I think we're going to use pretty much all of this strip except for a little bit at the middle. So when you do get a situation where you're going to be using most of the strip, you'll want to be a little more cautious about where you cut the selvage off. Obviously, you want to get all of the selvage removed. But sometimes you just got to be a little more careful than other times. So we are going for 16 flat. There we go. And that is not that much fabric, but it can still go in your crumb pile and be used on a crumb quilt or a crazy quilt. But these two are going to go across like that. I think it's going to look really lovely. Let's go do it. All right. Last set to go on. Get that set up. And we'll take a few stitches. And then we'll line up the end. And just kind of softly hold that in place while we sew up to it. Sometimes the fabric likes to have a little mind of its own and go the direction it wants to, but we are in charge, so we're going to tell the fabric that's not what it's going to do today. All right, that edge is done. Time for this last edge. Then we'll get it ironed out, get it all pressed, and we'll see what it looks like. There we go. All right, time to iron this up and see what it looks like. All right, let's see what we got. A quick press. And I am pressing this towards the outside because this has enough depth. I'm not too worried about shadowing. If it was quite a bit lighter, I would probably iron it to the inside towards the blue to avoid that shadowing, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. All right. I just kind of want to make sure we're not getting any tucks in there, creases, that sort of thing. All right. Move the ironing board away. And here we go. This is our first block. What do you think? Well, let me know in the comments what you think. I actually have already done the middle block following the same way And this is what that looks like. I used the hair for that one. So this is part 1 of a video series, making a quilt. And I'm doing this in hopefully 4 parts, maybe a 5th part. We'll see. The point of this is if you want to take out a panel that you bought maybe and haven't known what to do with it, and maybe this fits the bill, you can do this along with me. I would love to hear what panel ideas you have for this as we're going along. So far, we've made our first 2 blocks. We've got the outer ones, and we have our middle one. So I will be making the remaining 3 of these, and in part 2 of this series coming soon, we will go over how to make the accent blocks that are going to create that 3D effect that make it look like these are stacked on top of other tiles. I really look forward to you joining me for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked what you saw, please hit like, subscribe, share, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Take care, and please come back to the hive.